And Cindy, we're going to start with me crying. Um, Good morning. When Cindy asked earlier what our blessing of the day is, mine was easy to think of. It was being here and getting to speak with you. It's truly an honor, and I appreciate every one of you being here to hear me. As she said, I spent the last year studying the world's religions, and it made me contemplate a lot about what I believe and how I believe about life, about meaning, about death. And in particular, as we study death and dying and the perspectives of the different religions and different cultures, that impacted me pretty significantly. It made me think in new ways, and that's some of what I want to share with you today. Lao Tzu is known as the author of the Tao Te Ching. And he said, "Life and death are one thread, the same line viewed from different sides." I like to walk in cemeteries. They're quiet and peaceful, and there's a reverence there. A reverence not just for the deceased, but a reverence for life. Have you ever noticed how alive it is when you're in a cemetery? You get that nature, you hear the birds and the bugs, and fresh air just makes everything so vibrant. One day this spring, I was walking in my favorite cemetery, and I came upon a path, a section that I hadn't seen before, labeled Block 37I. And it's odd that I hadn't seen that path before. It's right where I park, and I had to have passed it dozens of times. But on this particular day, I was drawn to it. And as I walked up the red paved walk and came to see some of the headstones, I noticed that most of them only had one date: babies. Infants either stillborn or didn't live enough hours even into the next day. And my immediate reaction, which I'm guessing is some of yours, was weight, heavy weight of grief. I could feel the grief of those parents and those families. But I could feel something more. I could feel the power of those infants. I could feel their essence. At the bottom of one of the gravestones was carved, "Too beautiful for earth." And that caught my breath, and I had a thought, what if that's it? What if some are just too beautiful to be contained to a body? And not just babies, but all of us. Maybe we become too much to remain here, and then we die. Almost 20 years ago, I think, when my niece had a stillborn son, I was deeply questioning death. Death is particularly hard when we're thinking about children. It's hard to understand. And I wasn't specifically thinking about questioning the particular death of that particular child, but the meaning of death and of our existence and why we come here. Something that quickly became clear at that time was that this wasn't the beginning of that questioning. It had actually started long before, when I was young, and I witnessed my best friend's little sister be struck by a car and killed. She was 3, and I was terrified, and I wanted to understand something, anything about what had happened. I wanted to understand death. That began what's been my lifelong search for meaning, and frankly, a little bit of a fascination with death. As a preteen, I didn't have the capacity to grasp the depth of those things that I was questioning, and even later at 30, I still wasn't well equipped. Part of what makes this such a long search is that we don't want to think about it. We don't want to ask questions about death. I know for me, I felt odd. I felt like something was the matter with me for wanting to ask those questions out loud. And so I didn't for a very long time. We mostly want to focus on joy and happiness and the things that bring us that, whether it's food that tastes good or the beauty in the sky and nature and our favorite music and the relationships we share with people. And for most of us, when someone close to us dies, we think that death brings on the idea that death is the opposite of those things, or the end of those things. But is it? I think that's false. I've come to believe that death is not only sacred and a beautiful transition, but that it encompasses all of those things, just in a different way of experiencing, in a way that's bigger than life. We lose the body that perceives them in the way that we know. We also lose the body that restricts us. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Death is a release from the impressions of the senses and from the desires that make us their puppets, and from the vagaries of the mind and from the hard service of the flesh. Death is natural, divine, and unavoidable. What if we treated it as something to journey toward, instead of something to dig in resistance and shy away from?" I'm not saying we should rush to death. There is way too much incredible experience in living and too many things to be learned in this existence. But what if our approach was different? I used to run triathlons. This is a theme today. And I think this makes a little bit of a good analogy for living life toward death and the end of life. When you're participating in an event like that, you get to experience all kinds of things. For a while, you're immersed in water, you're swimming, you're breathing rhythmically, and you feel buoyant. And for a time, you're rolling along, the wind is in your face, and you're feeling free. And then for a good portion of it, you are simply putting one foot in front of the other and propelling yourself forward steadily, sometimes slowly, sometimes quickly. Throughout the course, you feel highs and lows, you feel some pain, even some agony. You feel elation as endorphins flood your body. Sometimes it's quiet and there's no one else around you. Other times there are people moving along with you and some even cheering you on. It's a plethora of experience, and you wouldn't do it if you didn't love it. At least not more than once. But it's not that you don't want it to end. You don't suddenly sense that you're nearing the finish line and slow down, or back up, or turn and run the other way. Reverend Cynthia is probably not coming up on 13.1 miles now and going, "Oh wait, I want to start over." I talked to her on the phone this week, and one of the things she said was, "When I get to 13.1 miles, I think, why does anyone want this to be halfway?" No, we want to finish. There's a grand celebration at the end. People are so excited for you. You're high-fiving everyone. They feed you. Water tastes better than it's ever tasted before. It's glorious. Can we look at life toward death that way? You relish the whole experience, this experience of your body, and you're ready for the end. Have you ever had a book just grab a hold of you and squeeze? I reread the book Who Dies by Stephen and Andrea Levine this year. I've read it a couple of times, but this year was like, when you finally are ready to get something, you finally get it. That's how I experienced this book this year. And one of the concepts in the book that really struck me was the idea that everything ends. Every thought ends. Every experience ends. Every emotion ends. Moment to moment, everything ends. There's a quote in the book that I just love. It's, "Our experience of life is the experience of change." Take a moment to consider that. Our experience of life is the experience of change. How much do we resist change? We get things the way we want them, and then we hold on to them staying that way. We create suffering. If we can keep that truth of change in mind, maybe we can eliminate or at least reduce our fear and our denial of death. What I'm learning is that we cannot separate living and dying. Each is integral to understanding the other. And the more we try to avoid thinking about death, the more we're in denial. The book discusses not only our denial of death, but our denial of aging and illness, all of which are inevitable. With this denial, aren't we then also denying our wholeness? There's another quote in the book that I actually printed out and I put it up in my office, and it says, "To be whole, we must deny nothing." There are million-dollar, probably billion-dollar industries designed specifically for us to deny our aging. We so often attribute the notion of our existence to the body. The face, the hair, the skin, the figure, the sensations, the abilities, the strengths, the appearance of this structure that we're living in. With this limited definition, we miss what's beyond the body. We deny our wholeness. Do we deny aging because the physical appearance of aging reminds us that we're moving toward death? I think so. But even more, I wonder if it's because we think that the signs of aging indicate that we're becoming less. What if we're becoming more? What if we embraced our aging, knowing that we're blessed to be on this path toward death, and that at some point along the way, we'll become too much for this life, too much for this body, and we'll pass on? What if we're coming closer and closer to the place where we can experience our essence? There's a poem that I love that I wanted to share. It's rather short. It's by Erica Zhang. It's titled, "Is Life the Incurable Disease?" The infant is born howling, and we laugh. The dead man smiles, and we cry. Resisting the passage, always resisting the passage that turns life into eternity. Blake sang Alleluias on his deathbed. My own grandmother, hardly a poet at all, smiled as we'd never seen her smile before. Perhaps the dress of flesh is no more than a familiar garment that grows looser as one diets on death, and perhaps we discard it or give it to the poor in spirit who have not yet learned what a blessing it is to go naked. Love that poem. I don't know the answers. I'm creating an understanding here. It may or may not be true. I'll probably spend the rest of my life contemplating, questioning, and altering my understanding. But I'll never again think that there's something wrong with that. And I'll no longer avoid bringing it up. So that's a little deep and may have made some of you uncomfortable. But I want you to leave here at ease. So I'm going to do another short guided meditation. And in the next few minutes, take whatever discomfort you might have, breathe in that, and see if you can release it. And for those that may have felt some comfort by what I said, take the next few minutes and integrate that. So if you'd like to sit comfortably, close your eyes if you want, or just find a gaze in front of you. Let your attention come to the breath. Not the thought of the breath, but the direct sensation of the breath as it comes and goes by itself. Let the awareness come right to the edge of sensation as the breath enters and leaves the nostrils. Let the awareness be soft and open, making contact with each breath without interference. Experience the natural tides of the breath as it comes and goes. Don't attempt to change it or control it, just observe it. Let the breath breathe itself without comment. Allow the breath to be as it is. If it is slow, let it be slow. If it is deep, let it be deep. If it's shallow, let it be shallow. Allow awareness and sensation to meet, moment to moment, with each inhalation, with each exhalation. Let the body breathe by itself. Just awareness. vast as the sky, spacious. Each breath unique, sensations changing moment to moment. From the body, other sensations arise and pass. The hands in the lap, the buttocks touching the chair. Each moment of sensation floating free. Each moment of experience just as it is. No need to label. No need to interrupt. Notice how thoughts arise, commenting, remembering, thinking. Each thought a bubble passing through the vast spaciousness of the mind, existing for an instant and dissolving back into the flow. No need for control. Let go of the body. Let go of the mind. Thoughts, feelings, arising and melting away. Nothing to hold on to. Once and for all, completely relinquish control. Let go of fear and doubt. Let each thing float in its own nature. No one to be, nothing to do. No resistance anywhere. Let the wind blow right through you. No one to be, nowhere to go, nothing to do. Be silent and know. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes. Bring your attention back to the room. I wish each of you a beautiful day, and thank you again for letting me be here.